Simon says subscribe and click on the bell icon to receive notifications.
Let me introduce you to today's instructor, Dave Cassuto. Dave has 2 master's degrees, instructional technologies and organizational psychology. He's trained countless learners face-to-face, but also many others with his online courses. He's created a significant number of courses for Simon Says It, including courses for various Adobe products and a number of Microsoft products, including our recent Excel 365 Essentials course and many more on the way later for the rest of this year. I'll pass you over to Dave now.
Wonderful. Well, thank you, Ben, and thank you everybody from all corners of the world for joining us. So I'm very excited to show you all the wonders that are sorting and filtering. And those of us who are beginner, there is going to be a lot for you. And those of us who are a little more advanced, believe it or not, there's quite a bit more than meets the eye with sorting and filtering. So we're not only just going to do the basics of sorting and filtering, we're going to do custom sorting, filtering, and then towards the end, we get into some really kind of hot off the presses new functions for sorting and filtering, which are known as array functions. All right, so without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and start to share my screen. And then you will see that everybody, if you are following along, you should have access to this file here. And you'll also see down on the bottom that we have all of these different tabs as well. And that's going to kind of set us on our course for the rest of our session. All right, so if you're ready to go, let's go. So let's just go ahead and start off with some basic sorting. Okay, so you can see my mouse here. You'll see me doing this every once in a while as well. But let's just say I'm looking at this content and I'd like to sort it by department. Okay, and I really just want to get it in alphabetical order. So the really nice thing is all I got to do is click anywhere inside of this column and sort it, right? So what am I sorting? Again, alphabetically. If I was sorting by earnings, I would just simply click inside of the earnings column and I'm good to go. Let's go ahead and just do this one for starters. And very simply, all I do is click in there. A lot of people think I got to highlight a whole bunch of stuff and do everything. No, Excel is smart enough to know that this column is the department column, and then all I very simply do is click here. Now, how could I sort? Well, I have 2 ways I can do it. Number one, within the Home tab, you see, and on the far right-hand side, you have the Sort and Filter group. You also have the Data tab, where you can go to Data, and then also you have Sort and Filter. Let's go ahead and start off with the Home tab. And then very simply, all I'm going to go do is sort and filter and then A to Z. And you can see just like that, it groups it all together. Really nice. And not only does it sort the department itself, but it takes all of its respective data with it. So really, really nice, right? Hopefully you see that's very easy to do. But now let's say I want to do something a little bit more fancy, a little bit more complex. So my CFO comes in and says, hey, listen, Dave, we'd really like to know how we are doing in terms of our departments and also the earnings, right? So I actually want to know from highest to lowest within each department. So essentially I'm doing kind of a group, or I'm doing what we call aggregation by each individual department and their earnings from highest to lowest. So now let's go ahead and go to data this time. And then you'll notice again, I have my sort and filter, and then I have sort right here. Okay, so this is essentially what we call a custom sort. So when I choose that, this is going to take me to this dialog box. All right, now this dialog box, you can see it consists of a number of different buttons on top, as well as this little very, very helpful little checkbox that says my data has headers. All right, I'll show you that in a second when it's turned off. And then we have this sort by. And then what am I sorting by? Well, I'm sorting, yes, by my department, but I'm going to go ahead and click on one of these buttons and add on a level because I'm doing a group that also has kind of a subgroup within it. So department, yes, that's the first thing. Then when I click on add level, what is the second thing? Well, very simply, I'm just going to go ahead and choose earning. And then you see here that I can actually sort it either A to Z for my department, right, alphabetically, or reverse, or smallest to largest, right? Or going largest to smallest, right? Totally up to you. I'm going to keep it just like that. Now, keep in mind, if I did not have my data has headers checked, notice what happens. It goes really kind of generic on me, and it doesn't understand that these are actually headers. So it goes right up to the top here. So that's kind of imperative you want to do that. All right, so let's go ahead and take a look at the beauty that this is. I click on OK, and you can see, very nice. Here's accounts, everything all stacked together. And then if you'll notice, it goes from lowest to highest within that department. I go down over here to administration, 75,000 to 124. It starts all over again, and then it comes down again, okay? So really nice, really, really powerful. Let's go ahead and first define what a filter is. So the first thing to understand is that a filter just allows you to sort of control what you see and what you don't see. Essentially, we're filtering out certain components, right? For example, if I only wanted to see all the L1 assets called cash, I can filter out all the rest of them so only the cash shows. But let's say I only wanted to see the market value of everything greater than $1 million. My condition is greater than $1 million. So I'm filtering it out to only show greater than $1 million, right? And there's also much more that we can do as well. We're going to explore some more kind of advanced filters. All right, so let's just go ahead and do one of those. Okay, so I'm going to go over to here to my L1 asset. And the first thing I have to do is actually apply the filter, right? So right now there is no filter applied to it. So all I got to do, I'm going to stay in my data tab, just very simply choose filter. Now you'll notice that there is this really nice keyboard shortcut around that. I'll go ahead and zoom in on that for you. Let's just see if it comes up. There we go. Control-Shift-L, right? So let's go ahead and try that one. If I do Control-Shift-L, notice how that pops right up. That's a really important one to know about if you want to memorize any keyboard shortcuts. That's a really good one to get you started. So these little drop downs indicate that there's a filter. If I do Control-Shift-L again, it turns it off. I'll do it one more time and it comes back on again. All right, so what did that do? Well, Excel did a lot of work as soon as I put that filter on by collecting all of these different variables that live inside that column. So I'm going to go ahead and click on Select All and then just choose Fixed Income and Cash. And I click OK. And now you can see when I scroll down, that's pretty much all I have here. All right, now let's go ahead and do one more. We'll go a little more extreme. Let's go ahead and do Equities. Click OK. And what you might notice is that on the left-hand side where my rows are, some of these are kind of skipping, right? They're kind of going from like, numbers that are not contiguous with each other, right? Because it's basically filtering out certain other ones. Let's go ahead and uncheck fixed income. And now we'll see a really extreme one. It's going from 1 to 7 to 10 to 17. So what that indicates to me is that they've just been filtered out, right? They have not been deleted. I can always get them back just by simply coming back over here to this little icon and then choosing the variable that I want. Now you'll also notice that this has a little filter option on it. Do you see that? This column, in fact, has a filter applied to it. That's pretty great. Well, what if I wanted to do a combination of saying, hey, I want to filter this as well as, let's say, my market value? Yeah, absolutely, I want to do that because sometimes my boss is going to come over, or my client's going to say, hey, listen, we want to know cash and equities that are all over 1 million. Yeah, I definitely want to do that. Let's go ahead and try that. Let's actually do maybe 100,000. So now I click on this. And what I'm going to do this time, instead of choosing from all of these, which will take me forever, I'm going to use what we call a conditional filter, right? The condition is based off of any of these conditions we see here. Like, does it equal this? Does not equal that? Greater than, etc. Maybe it's in the top 10 items or top 10%, whatever you want to do. Okay, later on we'll talk about dates. That could be another one you want to do. But in this case, all I really care about is all the ones that are greater than 100,000. So very simply, I choose greater than, and then I'm just going to say 100,000. Great, I have that there, and then I click OK. And now I've got a double filter. Okay, I've got this filter that's saying, hey, only show me the equities and cash, beautiful, that are over 100,000. You'll notice I've got quite a few less. So think about filtering as this really great storytelling, but also sort of control over your data. So you only want to see certain parts at certain times. You can very easily filter these things. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to clear out the filters, right? So I'm going to go back to my little drop down, and then you can see here is clear filter. From there, you'll also note that within my data tab, I have this clear option. So what's the difference between this clear and this clear? Well, this clear will only clear one column at a time, where this one does all the filters at once, right? So you might appreciate that for its efficiency. And then boom, I'm back to where I was before. Okay, so really nice. Hopefully you see the power in that and you see the value in that. Now let's go ahead and take a look at this one, which has dates, right? There's actually quite a bit going on here, right? This goes all the way up to 182, right? So there's a lot of different dates here. So what I'm going to do now is click on my little drop down, and I want you to notice how it's actually gotten all of my dates kind of grouped together, right, by the year, and then all these individual months, right? And I open that up and all the individual days there, right? Which is pretty cool, right? That's really nice. But now if we go over to here to our conditions, right, to this date filter, you'll notice how smart it is. It recognizes the fact that these are dates. So it looks a lot different than the last one we saw, doesn't it? Where it actually has like next week, this week, next quarter, etc. Look at that, all these things, even before and after, all these things that you're concerned about. And you also have all dates in the period. So if I only really want to look at April, I can very simply just choose April and then notice how it filters it out just by April. Okay, so really, really nice, very easy to do. Okay, so just good to know that when you are working with different types of data, like could be text, that's going to be a very different set of options. If you're working with the date, that's going to be a different set of options as well. Okay, but I'm going to go ahead and clear this out and we're good to go. Now let's go ahead and do something called a custom filter. Okay, and this is where things are going to get a little bit more potentially sophisticated for you, right? Where you might be thinking, okay, you know what? I want to look at certain data in a certain way, right? And that kind of sophistication comes from my requirements. So let me give you an example. So if we take a look at this ISIN number, I actually want to have kind of like two things showing up at once. Because notice I've got some that starts with X, some that starts with a U and a Z, etc. Well, I kind of want to have this X, all my X's show up, and I also want to have all my Z's show up. And that's a little bit more difficult with this, right? And even these text filters where you can have begins with, but that's only going to give me one variable, right? I can do begins with X, but what if I want to do begins with, right? So you have your choices. So let me go ahead and demonstrate for you. We're now going to go down to something called a custom filter. And it understands that this is text, right? So you're going to see we're going to get different options for text versus when we work with numbers. So I'm going to go ahead and say custom filter. And now we take a look here that we have, all right, show rows where your ISIN, what? Well, I want to have it where it begins with, right? So I'm just going to type out the letter B. This pops right up, right? That's a nice little autofill for me. And begins with, and what I want it to do begins with X, right? Okay, so it's going to recognize that. But then I want to have when it's going to show my X as well as my Z. So I'm going to choose or in this case. And then once again, I click on my drop down, tap on the letter B. Notice how that pops up. And by the way, if you don't do the letter B, you can always scroll up and down. But the first letter, right, you can always tap on that on your keyboard and it'll pop right up. Okay, and I'm going to say now Z. I'll go ahead and zoom out of that one more time so we can see it in action. I click OK, and now you can see, beautiful. It's only ones that begin with, let's go ahead and move over here, just X's and Z's. Look how powerful that is. Really, really slick, right? So that would be very difficult to get to, if not impossible, using our standard filter. And that's why we go over here to text filters and we come way down to the bottom and we do a custom filter. So let's go ahead and clear that out. And let's do another one. Right? So now everything comes right back. And let's do one that has to do with numbers. Okay, so I'm going to do, let's just say I'm looking for kind of my lowest guys. And I also want to know my highest guys for my market value. Okay, so once again, I'm going to go over to here to my filter. And it's very important that we remember that this filter dropdown has to remain. Right? If you don't see this, that means your filter has just not been activated. So I click on this. And once again, I'm going to go to my little conditions. And this time, of course, it understands this is a number filter. And then I'm going to come way down here to custom filter. Okay, so just like how I did with my text, I'm going to say custom filter. And now, once again, I'm going to have two different variables here. Right, so now what do I want to do? I'm going to say is less than. Okay, I'm going to say less than 100,000 or, and I'm going to say is greater than, and this is going to be a million. Hardest part is counting all those zeros. And then you can see, boom, I got that kind of all locked up and ready to go. Is less than 100,000 or is greater than 1 million. Okay, I'm looking at my top ones and also my bottom ones. I click OK, and now you can see, beautiful, I got exactly what I want. Now, what you may want to do in this case is do a sort, okay, to kind of be able to see them in a nice little grouping. And what's nice about this little filter is that you actually get a little 2-for-1. Because if you remember earlier how we talked about sorting, right, how we were able to do sorting from up here, well, guess what? As soon as you apply your filter, you actually have the sort option built right in. It's always there, right? We've explored all this here. We've explored all this here, right? We've gone to our number filters, all that stuff. But just kind of hanging out, hiding in plain sight is the sort option. So once again, when you do a filter, you have the sort option right there hanging out. So let's go ahead and click on that. And we can see beautifully, we have all this, and then all up to 100,000. And then boom, it jumps to 1 million, right? Knowing that it's actually done what it's supposed to do with all of my, different variables that I have created for it, right? Meaning that custom filter. Beautiful. And then I decided I wanted to sort it. And of course I can sort it, go in the other direction as well. So my high numbers are now up on top. Beautiful. Love that. Okay. That makes me very happy. All right, let's go ahead and clear that out. All right, one more time, and then boom. So hopefully you can really see the value and the complexity of kind of requirements we can ask of it when we are doing custom filters. Now let's go ahead and do another one. And this time let's do it for dates. And my concern now is looking at all the dates before a certain date and also after a certain date. So I click back on my little drop down for my filters. I'm going to again do date filter, and then you can probably guess where I'm going to go from here, down to custom filter. I choose that, and now you're going to see that I have, yes, this option for is before, and then because this is the date, some of you may have already noticed that, I've got a little date picker here. Got a little date picker here. So what I'm going to say is before February 1st, 2023. Okay, so I'll go over there. So I'm going to say is before February 1st, 2023. Boom. Okay, and then or is after April 1st. Now, if you make a mistake on any of these, you can always come back to these. It will remember it, right? So let's go ahead and just try this out. Click OK. And now let's go ahead and sort these. Oldest to newest. Notice how smart it is, right? It recognizes this is like a date sequence. And now we can see, boom, and then it jumps all the way to April. See that? Nothing in between, only the outliers. So I have all that level of control, and I can also sort it in such a way for myself as well. All right, now I'm going to go ahead and clear out the filters, and now everything is back to normal. Let's now take a little bit of a tiny sidebar where I want to talk about conditional formatting. And why do I want to talk about conditional formatting? Well, because conditional formatting and sorting and filtering all kind of work together, believe it or not. Because when you do your filtering, it does give you options to filter by colors, which is kind of nice, right? So let's go ahead and go over to here to this data here. And you'll notice I have this conditional format set up. So if you're not familiar with conditional format, let's do a quick little review. If I go over to here to home, you'll see here is conditional format. I'm going to choose manage rules because this one already has one on it. And you can see here I have my top 25% of all my numbers, and they're going to be in green, just like that, right? So really nice. If I wanted to edit that, let's go and edit the rule, right? Notice I can go ahead and make that top anything percent, right? Let's bring this down to 15%. Let's change the color. Notice here is the format. This is the condition. This is the format. I choose format, and let's just go ahead and just say a fill color. Let's go ahead and make it pink. Okay, do that. I click OK. And if I hit apply, you can actually see it in real time. Right? You're going to have like fewer numbers. They're going to have that. Okay, and that's fantastic. Let's say I wanted to do a filter on this now. So once again, let's go back to data, and we'll choose filter. And then boom, I have those little drop downs there. Now let me show you what's so neat about this is that once I do my filter, you can see that not only is it giving me choices for all of these numbers, not only are we seeing this number filter, conditions, all that stuff, but now we have this really great choice of filter by color. And we also have sort by color. You see that? So if that's kind of how you are thinking with your team, that's how you're organizing your content with color, it pays attention to not just the variables, but also the colors. Maybe at some point when you are working with conditional formatting, you're working with icon sets, right? And things like that. It recognizes all of those. So in my case, I'm just going to go ahead and say filter by color, and I'm just going to choose my pink, and now boom, beautiful. That just saved me a lot of time and not having to do the 15% or whatever because I've already done it, and now I can filter by that color, right? So once again, you can see it living there, filter by color. Now, of course, if you don't have any color on there, it'll be grayed out, so it's not going to make any sense to do that.
Hi, from everyone at Simon Says It. We hope you're enjoying this training lesson. Please like this video to show your support for the channel. If you want to take your learning further, earn a certificate for this course, and gain access to over 200 courses ad-free, click up there and go to simonsaysit.com. Thanks for watching, and back to the course.
Now we're going to go into what we call the filter array formula. I'll kind of define what an array is in just a little bit, but you're going to see that this is going to be a lot more kind of powerful than just your standard filter. And some people use this all the time. Now notice how I've kind of labeled this, the new power lookup, right? It actually is kind of doing like, if you ever work with like VLOOKUP, or you've heard of it, or you've worked with even like kind of pivot tables to a certain extent, you know, lookups or index and match and XLOOKUP, it kind of does the equivalent of it. And you're going to see, once again, it's something called an array formula. So let me break down for you what's already done. Okay, I'm going to kind of break down the function for you, and we're going to see what this is doing. So currently, I have this little drop down. Okay, and I'm looking for, hey, you know what? Let me see everything that has to do with North America, extract all this out. So it's essentially, it's filtering it out, but it's also extracting it. It's doing kind of a lookup. So if I change North America to South America, notice how it's taken these numbers here. So if we look at South America, 20,000, right? Boom, like that. Let's find the next one, 24,000. Boom, you see that there. And then here's the other one, South America, and we can see that one is 42,000, right? There it is, right there. Okay, so it's basically doing this very automatic, very quick way of just pulling all the data. Now, how is that happening? It's happening because of the filter function. So this one, I'm going to go ahead and double click on this little green cell right there. So you can see all the breakdown of this function. Okay, so first part, if I click on my little IntelliSense link, is known as the array. And that's very simple. It's just basically saying, hey, where are you getting this data from, right? Tell me where to look first of all. Pretty simple, right? And this is A6 through C20, and it's pretty much just like everything here. That makes total sense, right? Then we have this one called include. Well, this is where your filter actually happens. So my goal is to find out the region. Okay, that's great. But then I need to say, well, what is my actual condition? Well, my condition is whatever lives inside of G5. So if we look here, we have B6 through B20, which is what? It's everything that's inside here. And it says equal to what? Whatever is inside here. That's what makes it kind of dynamic, right? That's pretty great. Now you have this if empty, meaning, okay, you know what? There's none of those regions exist or whatever it is. Then we can put a little error message that says not found. Really, really neat. And I'll go ahead and do that with us in just a second. Okay, now this one is a different type of condition, but it looks very similar, right? You can see here we have filter, and then same thing. It looks at all the data here. And then this time it says include, and it says what? It's just for the revenue, because that's my condition here, is greater than whatever is inside of G11, right? Boom, see that? So now notice I'm only getting all of these numbers here. Now, let's go ahead and watch it in action, because this is a living organism and it updates automatically and quickly. And that's where one of the main distinctions we see between the initial filter that we worked on. So let's go ahead and choose North America again. And you can see here is my number of 44,196. So I'll go ahead and change that to 50,000. And notice how that changes here. Oh, and guess what? It also changed right there. That's beautiful. Well, you know what? Let me change this region, right, from utility for South America to North America. And look at that. It automatically adds it to it, right? Because what we know about data more than anything is that it's constantly changing, right? Yeah, absolutely, right? So we should know that it's very easy now to add on more content here, and then this formula picks it up automatically. I'm going to go ahead and do it from beginning, and then I'm going to come back. I'm going to show you another way we can do it as well. Okay, so we now have this filter function fx lesson. All right, and you just watch me do this. I'm going to do it from scratch. All right, I'm just going to do equal sign, filter, hit the tab key, and then just watch one more time. Here's my array, right? What's going to be included in it, right? Boom. And then we have include. So we're now going to choose everything that's inside of here equals what? Well, this guy. That's it, right? That's going to be my variable to essentially just kind of cherry pick all of the Asias from here. But when that changes from Asia to North America, we'll see that there as well. Okay, and if empty, I'll just say no data. All right, close it out, and then just watch what happens now. This is how we define an array formula. I just put it into one cell, but now watch what happens now when I hit enter. See that? It extracted out all of it because, I highlighted everything, right? And because part of this filter function is the array part of it, that is what allows it to be multiple, right? How it grabs everything, all parts of it. And that's why it also allowed me to expand out and more and more. The thing to understand about array formulas is that it exists in this cell, but it doesn't technically exist in these cells, right? Because if you look at the formula up on top, it's all gray compared to the original one, which is black, right? It's darker. Okay, so that's the thing to understand, right? Is that you're not really messing with this. Like I can't delete this even if I wanted to, right? Because this is sort of a ghost version of what's in this. So that's kind of the thing about array formulas. Okay, let's go ahead and do this one more time. Let's do filter. And now what's my array? Hopefully you're all saying it to yourself in unison in your head. So I'm going to go ahead and highlight everything. And now, boom, includes what? Well, all of these guys. And then here comes my condition. What am I filtering out by? It's greater than whatever is inside of here. Okay, now I'm going to do comma, and then I'll say no data. And now watch that come in, and everything there is greater than 45,000. Okay, but now let's go ahead and test out the no data part. Okay, because let's say I was like, hey, I want to know if we have a revenue greater than 50,000, right? So I type out 50, and you can see, boom, everything disappears, and it shows me no data. Look how slick that is, right? Let's go ahead and undo that. Let's again try different numbers. Let's go over here to, utility Asia. And again, if I try these numbers here, I'll go ahead and make this 50,000 one more time. Notice how that automatically changes, okay? So hopefully you see the value in this, okay? And you're thinking about how we can use this, and you're seeing that those of us who have some experience working with lookups, working with pivot tables, in course working with filters, how valuable this can be. Now, I do want to talk about one thing here when we talk about filters, is that there's a slight limitation to the way that I was doing it here. Okay, so let's go ahead and play out that limitation. Watch this. I'm going to go ahead and add on another Asia to this, right? I'll just go ahead and just say productivity. I'm going to say Asia. Okay, and then I'm going to just say 50,000. Notice nothing happened at all. Why is that? Well, if I start it off, notice you see my array. Where does it go to? It goes only to this little line right here. Okay, and for you, a lot of us might be that's exactly what you wanted, and it's never going to grow. But again, what did we establish? That, data, if nothing else, is constantly changing and also constantly growing. So what we're going to do, I'm going to come over to here to where we were before, to the complete one. We're going to work with something called a table. Okay, so this right here is known as the table as the source. Okay, so this table is going to be what we call dynamic, right? It grows. So therefore, as I add in more data, when it grows, it's going to automatically fill in with my data set here. Okay, so if I click inside this right now, you'll notice that this is a table, right? And notice this says table design, and then I've got my name of my table here, table div 2. But let me go ahead and change that. And I'll just call this div table 1. So I know what that is. Div as in division. Let's go ahead and make that clear. Division table 1. Beautiful. Okay, and that's what that is right there. And that's going to be important later on when we actually start working with our formula. So if I now go to here, you'll notice that my array is the division table 1. See that? And then it's going to include, right, division table 1, region equals da da da, right? So what is that looking at? It's looking at the column. Okay, we're going to play this out in reality in a second. This is one that's already done. And now we're going to see the benefit that we did not have before, where if I'm going to add on another Asia, right, I'll just go ahead and just say research, right? I'll do that. And now watch what happens when I type out Asia. It automatically appeared here, right? I'll do my good number 50,000 again. Boom, beautiful. That comes right up. Okay, and then if I'll just add this one on here, I'll just say Asia. And then that was research. So I go ahead and change this to research, right? So you can see how it's all kind of dynamic here, and it shows that up. Why? Well, if we take a look at this little guy right there, that table grew on its own. Okay, watch me as I do another one. I'm going to type out game, right? I'll type out Asia again, right? And did you see how that little line, that little kind of triangle automatically grew? So therefore, the table content did not need to be updated because it links up to this table, right? Because this is where the table begins and ends. So let's go ahead. We're going to see what this looks like now. I'm going to do now this is a table. Okay, so if you're not familiar with how to create tables, it's very easy to do. All you do is go to the Home tab and you just say Format as Table. Okay, and then boom, it becomes a table. Then you have this new tab called Table Design, right? And I'm just going to call this Division 2 Table. Now, if we go over to here to equal sign, filter, my array, you can see I just have to type out the name of it and it pops right up. How awesome is that? Boom, look at that, right? Pops right up for me automatically just by me typing out the first couple of letters. Do comma, include, okay? And then I'm just going to go ahead and just do all my stuff here, right? And then let's go ahead and do the highlight. That might be a little bit easier. So we're looking at the region, right? Yes, let's go ahead and do that. That makes it a lot easier if you just highlight it and it pops right up. And then what am I doing? I'm saying, again, equals what? Same thing here. And then I'll just say no data. Okay. So the second part, all I did was highlight my content rather than having to type in this craziness. I do that and I get the same exact thing. But where does the magic lie? The magic lies when I start to add in more content. All right. So let's go ahead and do another one. Let's just say utility and watch this. As soon as I finish with Asia, it pops right up. Next time I'll do 40,000. Boom. Beautiful. That's great. All right. I'll do game, Asia, and it comes up again. Look at that. I'll do 59,000. Boom. Beautiful. Okay. So you don't have to do tables, but if you know that your data set is going to be dynamic like this and it needs to be, and you want it to grow and grow, then you should make your source data into a table. So we learned quite a few things there, right? We learned about how tables work, how to create tables, how to name tables. We also learned how to refer to the tables as well as the columns in there. But most importantly for this exercise, we learned why we want to use tables for an exercise like this, because it is dynamic. Let's go ahead. We're going to finish off our lesson by talking about some other relatively new functions. One is called sort and one is called sort by. All right, so let's go ahead and just take a look at what we have here. Okay, and again, this is going to be an array function, meaning I'm just going to do one little function here, and then it's going to bring out all of its respective content here. So think about, again, what this function is. This function is a sort function. It's going to allow us to sort by whatever, right? Whatever we're interested in. If you look at this data right now, this is all sorted by last name. Do you see that? That's not a coincidence, right? It's all sorted by last name, and it's taken all my content here, and it's automatically done it here. right? So let me show you this in action. And notice how I have Black, Daily, or Gabriel, etc. Well, let's go ahead and, for example, I'm just going to go ahead and change Chris Menard's last name to Adams. Notice how automatically the Adams now just popped up into here. See what I mean by the dynamicism of it, right? The fact that it's constantly paying attention, right? And it's constantly updating itself based off of what's here, right? You see that, how I did that? Let's go ahead and Peter Kelly. Let's go do Peter Kelly. That will be Peter Belly, Peter Bell. Boom. And you can see, boom, there that is, just like that. Let's go ahead and now take a look at the syntax. Now that we know kind of what the value is, I'm going to click on the formula, and we will see that we have, first of all, our array. Just like how we saw with our filter, it's like, hey, what are you looking at here? Where's our data? And absolutely, this could 100% be a table if you're planning on adding in more content, right? In fact, maybe it should, especially if you're thinking about adding more. And some of us have a daily kind of new influx of data, and you might want to make this into a table. 100%. Okay. Now we have our sort index, right? And this is kind of a funny one, right? All we're saying is here, what column number are we sorting by, right? It's a weird way that they say it, but notice how it says 2. What does that mean? Well, we're sorting by the second column. That's all that means, right? Nothing more than that, right? So then my sort order, right? It's just, okay, was it going to be an alphabetical going ascending or descending, right? Simple as that. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and do this twice. I'm going to go ahead and get rid of 1, and notice how I get rid of 1. They all get removed, right? Because it's all kind of, this is the underpinning of all of them there. Right? That's how array functions work. So I'm going to say sort, and then boom, there I am. And then I'm going to go ahead and highlight all my content. Beautiful. And now you can see there is my sort index. And then all I got to do now is count. Let's just say 1, 2, and I want to sort by last name. And the next exercise, I'll do it one more time. Maybe I'll sort it by department, right? Totally up to you, right? And then notice when I go to my comma, what do you want to do? Are you doing ascending or descending? And it's hard to tell, but descending actually has a little minus sign there. So I'll just show you what that looks like. I'll do minus, close it out, and now notice that Wong is now first, and then Vandelay, and then Stevens, etc. You can see how nice that is. And then let's go ahead and change Chris Adams to Chris Zillow. Boom. Now, see that pops right up. Let's go ahead and try it with a different column. Just in case that's not clear, I'm now going to go over here to this one where we're going to do our practice, the sort and sort by. I'll do it one more time a little faster. I say sort, and I'll highlight everything. Okay, beautiful. And this time, let's say I want to sort alphabetically by departments, right? So here's department. Or maybe you want to do by salary from high to low. So this is the part where we do it, again, kind of analog, where we're going to count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 is for salary, 7 is department. Okay, so let's just try them both. I'll say 7. Okay, and I'm going to say 1 for, going to do ascending, and then, oops, let's try 6. There we go. Okay, I think I put a period instead of a comma. So now we can see here, I've got my salary going from lowest to highest, right? You see how easy and nice that is. So many different ways to do this. Now, for example, let's go ahead and give one lucky person a big fat raise, right? Let's go ahead and give this person, who is Haley Miller, a raise from $56,000 to $120,000, right? And remember how I'm doing this. I am doing it from lowest to highest, and you can see, boom, now Haley shows her salary right there. Let's come back to our original formula, and now let's do a -1. Why am I doing -1? To change the sort order. Very quickly and easily, I've now changed the sort order from the highest to the lowest being on top. And by the way, all of these can still be formatted, right? Maybe some of you are wondering, like, this is really hard to read. I can still format this to have commas or whatever, right? And also or that, right? Or even add in dollars, whatever you might want to do, boom, you can do that just the same. And by the way, in case you're not clear on these, you can always go to this little insert function option right there, right? And this will take you to the breakdown of all of the different kind of arguments that we have within the function. And also you can get extra help on the functions too. So if you're not clear, if you want a little more review on it and a little more examples, you go to this help on this function, it'll take you to the Microsoft website. So, and it'll actually give you like some videos and breakdown of everything there. Okay, now let's talk about the sort by function. Again, a nice little hot off the presses function. Now, we've already done this, believe it or not, right? We did something similar to this in one of our first lessons where we have one variable and then we have a subset of that variable within a group. So in this example, we have our first grouping is by department. And then within the department, we're going from lowest to highest, right? We start over again and then lowest to highest. Beautiful. So how's that happening? Well, here's my function. And notice how I'm looking at everything right there. There's my array. And then I have by what array? What am I looking at here, right? Basically, you're just looking at everything that's going to be the department. That's everything right there. And in this case, it's different, where we're not choosing the column number. You might think so, right? Because that's how the sort did it, but they're kind of throwing a little bit of curveball. But it makes it easier on some levels because we're just highlighting, right, what we want there, G2 through G25, everything right there. Notice it's in red. And then the sort order, right, notice I'm doing it in alphabetical. That's my 1. And then now, guess what? I have by array 2, because that's my second grouping that I'm concerned about. And that's going to be my salary, and then once again, my sort order. So let's go ahead and take a look at that one. And by the way, same goes for these guys. Absolutely could be a table, and that might help you with all of these things here. And this I'm going to say sort by, okay, what's my array? So I'll go ahead and highlight everything, okay, come right back. And now by array, what am I looking at here? Well, I'm concerned with all of my departments coming in first. So I highlight them, and then I'm going to do it in ascending order. So I just type out the number 1. And now when I do my next comma, I'm off to my second array. Again, what am I sorting by within that grouping of the department? So very simply, I can go ahead and highlight everything right there. Wonderful. And then my sort order. And this time, let's just go ahead and just say 1 more time. And now let's take a look at our handiwork. See how we're getting these guys just like that, just like that. And if I do -1, guess what -1 is going to do? It sorts it by highest to lowest, but within the department. So you can see there that is. All my highest earners are right there. And then boom, I have that as well. And once again, this is all dynamic, right? So this is, again, kind of like a lookup, right? On some levels, it is exactly like a lookup, but we're doing a lot more kind of fancy stuff. It's already kind of being sorted out for us, and it's cherry picking out all the information we want. What do you want to sort out by? And also, in case you want to change anything on the originating data, it automatically feeds into this.
If you're not a subscriber, click down below to subscribe so you get notified about similar videos we upload. To see the full course that this video came from, click over there. And click over there to see more videos from Simon Says It.